The letter wasn't meant for Nora Bennett. She found it by accident, folded thin as a secret and hidden in the lining of a donated coat. It was closing time at Hearth and Home, the little thrift shop where Nora worked afternoons after her morning shift at the bakery. She shook the coat once to loosen the dust, and something fluttered to the floor. An envelope, cream paper gone soft at the edges, sealed with a dab of brittle red wax. In old-fashioned ink, the front read, "For Rosemary. Open when you are brave." No last name, no date, just a name and a dare. Nora glanced toward the front window. Rain needled the glass and turned the streetlights to halos. Her boss, Mrs. Wickham, was counting the till. "Everything all right, dear?" the older woman called without looking up. "Found a letter," Nora said, "hidden in a seam. People tuck away their whole lives and forget where they put them," Mrs. Wickham said. "If there's a return address, we return it. If not, it goes in a lost and found drawer." Nora turned the envelope over. No address, only a slanted initial pressed into the old wax. S. "Drawer, then," Mrs. Wickham said gently, hearing the reluctance in Nora's silence. "Unless it's yours." "It's not," Nora said, and slipped the letter into the drawer with the odd buttons and lone earrings and a set of keys for a car no one had driven in years. But all the way home, the name Rosemary followed her like a song half remembered. "Open when you are brave." By morning, Hearth and Home had a line of customers waiting for umbrellas and warm sweaters. The letter sat in the drawer like a heartbeat. At lunch, Nora gave in. She carried the envelope to the little break table in the stockroom and stared at it until the words blurred. Then, with more reverence than she'd ever used on pastry boxes or price tags, she slid a butter knife under the wax and lifted the flap. "My Rosemary," the letter began in the slanted hand of someone who had practiced honesty on paper. "I was a coward the day I left. I told myself I was protecting you, but the truth is I was protecting my fear. I kept a key to what I owed you. It will be in the blue book where we met, between the pages where you underlined, 'We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars.' If I am too late, give this to our daughter. Tell her I wanted to be the man she believed I was. Samuel." Nora read it twice, breath snagging on phrases like hooks. "Our daughter, the blue book where we met." And then one more line at the bottom, almost an afterthought P.S. "The name Bennett was your idea. I kept it close." Nora's last name was Bennett. She sat very still. "Bad news?" asked Mrs. Wickham, appearing in the doorway with the spooky talent of shopkeepers everywhere. "I don't know yet," Nora said honestly, and handed over the letter. Mrs. Wickham read it with the solemnity of a judge, then set it down like something alive. "What's your mother's name?" she asked softly. "Elaine," Nora said. "Her mother died when Mom was little. She never met her father. We never had stories." Mrs. Wickham considered Nora's face, then the ink. "The blue book is the picture of Dorian Gray. We shelve it with classics. We sell 3 a week to moody teenagers with very serious eyebrows." She paused. "We also keep donations for a month before shelving." "Cool, mate." They went to the back wall, where incoming books waited like travelers. Mrs. Wickham ran her fingers along spines until she found a worn blue hardcover. Its gold title faded to a whisper. Inside, 2 lines were underlined in blue pencil. "The only way to get rid of the temptation is to yield to it." And later, "We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars." A folded square of blue satin ribbon marked the page. Taped behind the ribbon, so carefully it had become part of the cloth, lay a tiny brass key. Nora didn't breathe until the key rested in her palm. On its tag, neat letters, Morningside Bank, Box 117. Beneath it, a date, May 18th, 85. 39 years, Nora whispered. "Some doors wait," Mrs. Wickham said. "Do you want company?" Nora thought of her mother's careful budget notebook, the way Elaine folded receipts like promises. "Yes," she said, "but first I need to call Mom." Elaine Bennett listened without interrupting. Nora could hear her mother's pencil stop moving, could hear the careful breath between one life and the possibility of another. My mother's name was Rosemary, Elaine said finally. I've never told you because I never had anything to add. She died when I was 5. I have a photograph of her laughing. That's it. Do you want to come with me? Nora asked. Yes, Elaine said, and her voice shook like a yes that had waited too long. At Morningside Bank, the vault attendant treated the key like a passport. Box 117 slid onto the desk with a soft metallic sigh. Inside lay a velvet pouch, a stack of letters bundled with ribbon, and a slim ledger bound in leather. Elaine's hand hovered over the letters and then chose the ledger first, practical even at the edge of wonder. Nora opened the pouch. A locket spilled into her palm, warm from velvet. Inside were 2 tiny photographs, a young woman with a laughing mouth, a man with kind eyes who looked like a promise he hadn't yet broken. Mom, Nora said softly, turning the locket so Elaine could see. Elaine pressed 2 fingers to her lips. That's her, she whispered. And him. They read in the quiet of the cubicle while the bank hummed outside. The ledger wasn't numbers. It was records of deposits to something called Starling Fund, small amounts at first, then larger. Names were attached. Neighbors, a few businesses, a daycare, the community theater. The letters were unsent drafts and dog-eared pages addressed to Rosemary and Elaine. Apologies written and rewritten until the paper thinned. I'm sorry I missed your first recital. I'm sorry I wrote this and didn't mail it. I'm sorry I believed leaving would save you from my mess instead of asking for help to clean it. At the bottom lay a notarized document on onion skin paper, Declaration of Trust, Starling Fund. It named a trustee, Samuel Hale, and a successor, Rosemary Bennett, and if both were gone, their direct descendant as steward. The purpose: to provide emergency aid and small grants to families in our town who need a hand that is quick, quiet, and kind. The bank had kept the account open all these years, tiny dividends collecting like dust. Elaine sat back hard, as if the chair had moved. Samuel Hale, she murmured. He signed my birth certificate as unknown. That was the truth we knew. Nora traced the embossed seal with 1 finger. Mom, she said, and the word held too much. He made something. He meant for you to have it. For us. Elaine closed her eyes. He also left. I can hold both. They signed the bank's forms to access the box as successor beneficiaries. When they stepped into the gray afternoon, it felt like the town had shifted a degree toward possible. Word did what word does in small places. It traveled. The first person to knock on Nora's door after dinner was the last person she expected. Marion Kincaid, the developer who had been trying to buy Hearth and Home and a surrounding block for a glass-fronted market hall that no one asked for. Marion's smile was sweet and sharp. So happy for you, she said to Elaine without being invited in. Heard your good fortune. We all know how hard you've worked. If you're planning charitable work, my foundation would love to coordinate. Or, since you're taking on your mother's old responsibilities, perhaps you're ready to sell the shop to someone who can modernize the block. Mrs. Whitcomb, who had drifted down the hall like a benevolent ghost, stepped around Marion and planted herself in Nora's doorway like a tree. The shop is not for sale, she said. And charity begins with listening, Ms. Kincaid. We're busy listening. Marion's smile held. Sentiment makes terrible business, she said lightly, and handed over a folder thick with glossy renderings. Call me when you're ready to stop bleeding value. After she left, Nora opened the folder and stared at their block rendered sterile and sunlit. Mrs. Whitcomb quietly tore the drawings in half. Elaine laughed for the first time since the vault. That night, Nora and Elaine spread the Starling Fund ledger on the kitchen table and read the typewritten mission again. Quick, quiet, and kind. Elaine touched the locket at her throat and then set it on the ledger like a seal. If we restart this, we do it right, she said. We find someone who understands how to manage a fund. We make rules that serve people, not pride. And we tell the truth about who we are and where it came from. Quick, quiet, kind, Nora echoed. And brave? They needed help. The next morning, Nora walked into the newsroom of the River Courier, where a reporter named Leo Parks specialized in stories that made powerful people uncomfortable. His office looked like a hurricane had decided to stay. He listened without interrupting, the way good reporters and good baristas do. "I don't want a scandal piece," Nora said. "I want a history that helps us do this right." "History and accountability are cousins," Leo said mildly. "Mind if I check a few facts while you meet with a real financial grown-up?" He sent them to Dr. Syra Khan, a nonprofit finance expert with a laugh that made complicated things smaller. Syra flipped through the trust documents, nodded, and then made a list so short and terrifying it had to be good. Governance, compliance, community board. "You'll need a board that isn't just you two," she said. "People who will argue with you when you're wrong and say yes when yes is the right risk." "Mrs. Whitcomb," Nora said immediately. "Tasha from the daycare," Elaine said. "Pastor Jim," Nora added. "He knows who needs help before they know to ask." "And someone with a spine for numbers," Cyrus said. "I'll sit in until you find them." They drafted bylaws at the bakery between scones and receipts. They opened a new account and watched as the old trust rolled into a living one. Leo called to say that Samuel Hale had died 15 years earlier in a town 2 hours away, with a short obituary that mentioned volunteer hours and a weekly chess game in the park. "No record of scandal," Leo said. "Just a man who tried to do small good late." "Small good accumulates," Elaine said. "That will be our motto." They planned a quiet relaunch. No gala, no speeches, just a flyer at the post office and a line on the Courier's community page. Starling Fund returns. Emergency grants for neighbors. Apply at Hearth and Home. No questions at shame. The first day, no one came. The second, 3 people asked for help paying for medication, a winter coat, and a deposit on a safer apartment. The third day, Mrs. Whitcomb found an envelope on the shop counter with $50 and a note, "For what the town did for me when my heat went out. J. Alvarez." When Marion Kincaid learned what they were doing, she returned with a different smile and a lawyer. "Operating a fund without proper oversight is reckless," she said, dropping a letter thick with legal words. "And I can't have Hearth and Home sullying the block while we bring investment." Syra read the letter, smiled like a cat in sun, and drafted a response citing bylaws, trustees, EINs, and the State Attorney General's Registry of Charitable Organizations. Leo published a tidy piece titled "A Legacy Comes Home," which explained the fund, the trust, and a small history of kitchen table kindness. Public comments favored Starling over Glass. Marion pivoted. She sponsored a concert in the square, staged photo ops, and offered to partner by funneling applications through her foundation. "We'll scale this," she said, as if scale were always a virtue. "Scale without soul is a spreadsheet," Elaine said, polite but immovable. Around this time, the ledger yielded one more note at the very back, so faint Nora almost missed it. "If it's you reading, Elaine, tell Rosemary I saw you from across the street that summer you turned 10. You had a lemonade stand, and you gave away a cup to a boy who couldn't pay. I left the dollar under the jar. I wanted to knock. I didn't. I am sorry. S." Elaine traced the lines and then put the page down carefully. "I'm tired of apologizing for a man who isn't here," she said. "But I'm not tired of building what he meant to build." By fall, the Starling Fund was paying for wheels on a grandmother's walker, a pair of steel-toe boots for a teenager's first job, bus passes, dental work, and the stubborn repair of a leaky roof that had defeated 3 landlords and 1 saint. The application lived on 1 page. The last box read, "Tell us what would make your month easier." People told the truth. One cold evening, someone set a fire in the alley behind Hearth and Home. It started small, paper a spark, and grew noisy. The shop's back door scorched. The break room window cracked like ice. The fire department arrived fast. No one was hurt. The next morning, a card in the mail slot read, "Glass goes up fast. So do rumors. Sell." Well, the next one gets bigger. It wasn't signed, but the font smelled like money. Sheriff Dana Cole, took the cards seriously and the Bennett women more seriously. She arranged patrols, installed a camera, and said, "Bullying is just expensive cowardice. Call me if wonder turns to worry." Nora didn't sleep much that week. She shelved donations, counted hangers, and tried not to check the camera feed every 5 minutes. The town did what towns do when bullies test the fence. They showed up. Tasha set up a shop and support Saturday that turned the aisles into a reunion. The bakery donated gingerbread men. The barber shop offered free trims for anyone who bought a sweater. Leo ran a sidebar. Sometimes the news is people showing up. Midway through the day, Nora stepped outside to breathe and found a tall man with gray at his temples studying the storefront like a pilgrim arriving late. He wore a clean wool coat, the cautious stance of someone hoping not to hurt anything. "Can I help you?" Nora asked. "I don't know," the man said, and smiled in a way that made something in Nora's chest recognize something. "My name is Michael Hale," he said. "I'm Samuel's nephew. I saw the story. I recognized the handwriting in your photo. My uncle wrote like he was trying to make the pen do penance." "Do you know why he left?" Nora asked, the question that had sat like a stone under everything else. Michael looked at his hands. "He and my father had a falling out about a business deal that wasn't clean. My uncle tried to fix it by torching his own life before it could corrupt you. He thought leaving would keep the mess away. He was wrong and sorry for years." Elaine joined them, wiping flour from her hands. She'd come straight from dropping scones to the fundraiser table. Michael looked at her like at a photograph turned real. He reached into his coat and pulled out a battered cigar box. Inside lay a stack of deposit slips, a ribbon key that matched Nora's, and a photograph of a young Elaine on a tricycle, taken from across the street. "My grandmother kept these," he said. "We didn't know what to do with them until your story gave them a home." Elaine closed her eyes as if steadying a ship, then opened them and offered her hand. "Welcome," she said simply. With Michael's records, Syra helped them file an addendum to the trust documenting every thread of the money's path. Leo wrote a follow-up that was mostly about how families try again. Donations increased. Not large ones with speeches attached, but small ones with notes like "for the boots," and "for the roof," and "for that boy at the lemonade stand." Marion tried one more maneuver, a zoning petition that, if approved, would restrict the block's use and push the shop out on a technicality. The council chamber filled with sweaters that still smelled faintly of thrift store soap. Tasha, Pastor Jim, Mrs. Whitcomb, and Sheriff Cole spoke in orderly succession about community and common sense. Syra cited case law with grace. When Marion rose to speak of progress, a kid from the daycare stood up and said, "Progress is when Miss Bennett knows my mom can get to work because we have a stroller now," and the room leaned toward that definition and refused to lean back. The petition failed. Marion's smile cracked at the edges and was replaced by a careful neutrality that said she would move her attention elsewhere. The alley stayed quiet. The camera caught only cats. Winter came on like a hell breath. The fund's work changed shape. Heating oil, hot plates, a motel room for a woman between apartments, and bad luck. On the anniversary of the vault, Nora locked up the shop and walked to the river. Lights winked on the water like scattered coins. Elaine joined her, tucking a thermos under her arm. "What would Rosemary think?" Nora asked. "That we took the dare," Elaine said. "Open when you are brave." "I thought this letter would tell me who he was," Nora said. "Turns out it told me who I could be." Elaine poured cocoa into tin cups. "Small good accumulates," she said again, and clinked tin against tin. They went home to a dining table that had forgotten how to be neat. There were grant applications waiting, thank you notes half-written, a pie cooling, and a letter from Leo saying he'd nominated the Starling Fund for a quiet award that came with a check and no speech. Nora set the locket in the center of the table. "I think I'm ready to write to him," she said. "To Samuel?" Elaine asked. "For the part of him that tried," Nora said. She pulled a sheet of paper from the drawer and began. "Samuel, we got your message. We opened it when we were brave enough, which took a while. We forgive what we can. We build with the rest. The key fit. The door opened. We were looking at the stars. Nora and Elaine. She folded the letter and slid it into the ledger between pages that had learned to carry weight. A week later, a snowstorm shut the town like a book. Hearth and home stayed open anyway. People needed blankets and mittens and the comfort of choosing something useful. A line formed at the counter. A woman with a baby and no boots. A man with a list that showed he meant to fix something broken. A shy teenager looking for a coat to wear to a job interview. Quick, quiet, kind, Mrs. Wickham murmured, and the words worked faster than space heaters. At 7, when Nora flipped the sign, a couple stood waiting at the door, stamping snow from their shoes. The man held an envelope. "Do you still take donations for emergencies?" he asked. "We do," Nora said. "Always." He handed over the envelope. Inside, $50 and a note, for when trust needs proof. All those years ago, a stranger helped me at a bus stop. I never forgot. Nora smiled with the soft recognition that certain stories circle back in ways you never expect. She added the money to the lockbox, wrote bus stop in the memo line, and felt the quiet joy of a loop closing. That night before bed, she opened her notebook and wrote 3 lines for herself. Not for any ledger or newspaper. We're not defined by what we are owed or what we owe. We are defined by what we repair. Trust isn't a gamble when it's a practice. Small good accumulates. If you're enjoying our stories and want more heartwarming, high-stakes tales like this, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep posting new stories every day. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes a single letter can change a life. New uplifting stories every day on our channel.